Are we ready to proceed?
Jason, can I ask you, as long as your office is in front of where I live, where do you live and which route do you use to get to your office? If that's possible, I don't know.
When we're not live, we can talk about that.
Very much, Jason.
The connection to YouTube is timing out. I will be trying that again.
Shut off our video, for example, I don't need to be necessarily see response because first crossing out members to obviously when it needs to raise an objection, turn off their mute and speak. So that issue. I'm just wondering if that might help the internet sensibility issue.
That's not a bad suggestion. So if people who are not actively so there, it's all live now? Okay. Okay, thanks. So apparently we are live again. Thanks. We can continue the cross-examination.
Okay, Mr. Cherniak, if you want to reset.
Yes. I have to admit, I don't remember exactly where we ended, but I think I think you had said that or confirmed that the highest buildings in the Vaughan Metropolitan Center are about 50 stories, right?
That's right.
Okay. And outside of the city of Toronto and Ottawa, are you aware of any buildings in Ontario that are, or sorry, and the Vaughan Metropolitan Center? Are you aware of any buildings in Ontario that are over 40 stories?
Outside of Toronto and Ottawa?
And the Vaughan Metropolitan Center.
Mississauga.
Okay.
Let me just see. I'm just thinking ahead. There's I know for sure Mississauga. And off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you without not reflecting back on some of those municipalities in their urban centers or their major transit station areas.
Would you agree with me that north of Yonge and Bernard, or if there's a 40-story building at Yonge and Bernard, there's not going to be anything taller north of it except Ottawa, right?
Probably, I would agree. Probably north of Yonge and Bernard. I mean, I haven't evaluated Oak Ridges and what the potential is relative to Oak Ridges. And with respect to Newmarket, I have to take another look at their maximum heights as it relates to what's permitted.
So let's just talk about what's actually built or proposed. You're not aware of any proposals to go that high north of Yonge and Bernard, right?
I'm not aware of.
And there's nothing built either that's over 40.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. And if you go south, you'd have to go south at least to the Vaughan metropolitan area, right?
Probably, yeah.
Right. And that's on, the only real transit station in York Region, right? Or subway station, I mean, in York Region.
For now, yes.
Okay. I'm going to move on. You're aware that issue 8 is the question of whether holding provisions should be used to control heights, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I'm sure you've seen tall buildings that seem out of place before, haven't you?
I have, yes.
You could say they stick out like a sore thumb sometimes, right?
Yeah, I would agree.
Do you think, in your opinion, are such buildings an example of good urban design?
If a building sticks out as a sore thumb, depending on the context, if it is the only building, there are instances where it could be considered, it maybe the design deployment was not appropriate. I'd have to consider the context, whether that building is the first of many to come, whether it's a part of an evolution, whether there's the intention of creating a center, to which the first one is always going to be a little bit odd. And the result at the end of the day is going to be something desirable.
And at Yonge and Bernard, particularly with the policy-based height regime, wouldn't it be better from an urban design point of view to have some of the shorter buildings go up before the taller buildings go up?
From an urban design perspective, I don't see why there would need to be a desire for that. If there is a plan to see those opportunities, then whether the mid-sized building or the high-rise building goes up first, I think it's immaterial.
Wouldn't it look better if the shorter buildings go up first because they more naturally fit into the existing area?
Well, at a certain point, even from a design perspective, you have to balance what looks better versus what is practical. And I do not know of a design regime or a design policy framework that says mid-rises go first before high-rises.
If it were practical for the low mid-rises to go up before.
Theoretically speaking,
Yes.
if it were practical, theoretically, if we could control development in which it starts from the edges and moves to the center, from a neighborhood perspective, it would probably be preferred. But from a usability and creating activity within the space, you would probably see a long-term objective being met as opposed to a short-term objective. So if you wanted to find greater animation within the KDA, those buildings with greater intensification, buildings that are taller, would help bring that critical population sooner. So it depends on which objective you're trying to preserve. This plan is looking to create a place. The taller buildings will help to create that place sooner. So I would probably conclude, in fact, I would conclude that whatever buildings come in that help to animate this space sooner would be more desirable for everybody.
So I do understand that's your opinion, but I think what I also heard you say is that from the perspective of the neighborhoods, there would be some value in starting from the outside and moving into the center, right?
Yeah, and that's one interest that's always considered as part of the approval process.
Okay. I'm gonna go to, and I don't think I'm sharing my screen anymore, but it's tab 82, which is the draft proposals from February 2020. First, I have to find it on my computer. Okay. I'm going to share my screen. So tab 82, these are the draft for public consultation from February 2020. Have you reviewed this?
I have.
Okay. Were you consulted at all when this was prepared?
I was not.
I go to one of the schedules here. So this is the schedule that was proposed by staff in February 2020 with the maximum densities and heights, right?
That's right.
And I'll just zoom in so everyone can see. Oops. So here are the heights, up to 30 stories. That was the maximum in along Yonge Street, then up to 25 stories in the interior corridor. And you can see those areas on this particular map here.
Yes.
So up to 30 stories here, up to 22 stories there.
I see. Yes.
Okay. Do you think that was a reasonable proposal from a height point of view?
I think it's one proposal. Is it reasonable? I've already given evidence that I think that a height limit is not necessary.
And I understand.
So, is it reasonable to have the height limit as well as an FSI limit within this plan? Or is it reasonable that this plan, should this plan have been considered and approved? Is that what you're asking me?
I'll be a little bit more specific.
Okay.
What I want to understand, I understand what your preference is. You're saying that you support the plan as proposed in May of 2020. I'm asking you whether this February 2020 draft, would those heights have been in compliance with the various planning instruments?
And sorry,
the Planning Act, the growth plan, would it work with the design policies that you brought us to in your direct evidence?
sorry, just to clarify, is the question being asked within the context of everything else that was in the February 2020 plan? Or is my friend asking that question within the context of the current proposal?
I'm asking if the current proposal were amended to include these heights.
Just those heights, nothing else.
Yeah, just the height change. I'm not talking
Okay.
about density with this witness.
Okay.
If this height change were made, would it comply with, or would it be, yeah, would it comply with the requirements of urban design? Not is it your preference, but would it work?
I honestly don't know if it would work. And the reason being is that the framework of the current secondary plan has been designed in such a way, or has been structured in such a way as to provide the various elements to control height and density. If this element is added in addition to all the other considerations that have been placed in there, I haven't had time to consider what that means, but it could result in implications that would inhibit development within this area.
It would inhibit the heights. What else would it inhibit?
Again, I haven't had time to be able to flush out this scenario that you placed in front of me. Like if I added height in addition to angular plane, in addition to all those other components, I would need to be able to understand what the implications is. I need to be able to to flesh out, similar to the demonstration that city staff had undertaken relative to the concept, to see what the outcome would be in undertaking that.
You've given us your opinion that all those other components are part of the best practices in the city of Richmond Hill, right?
Yes, and my opinion was based on a combination of them utilized together. There is a balance that occurs.
And if you add a maximum height, it would be the same as every other development in Richmond Hill. You would have those specific height regime policies along with the maximum height, just like everywhere else in Richmond Hill, right?
In fairness, there are a number of things that have been framed in a certain way in the secondary plan that have been intended to carve out, but at the same time create a window of development density within each of the individual blocks within the KDA. So you're asking if we add this additional item to the other policies and the other provisions. What I'm saying is I can't tell you definitively whether there's going to be, whether it will work or not. What I can tell you is this plan that, this modified version of the plan based on the policy framework that was recommended at that time would have been a plan that likely would have been implementable. So was this plan. So was the plan that is before the tribunal today.
Oops. So you don't have an opinion then on whether these maximum heights added to the current proposal would be appropriate? My
opinion, as noted previously, is that those heights are not necessary in order to control heights within.
I understand that, but I'm asking.
So that is my opinion.
Your opinion is that it's not necessary, but when I ask you, would it still be acceptable based on the various policies in the planning instruments? Your answer is you don't have an opinion.
I didn't say that I didn't have an opinion. If you're asking whether height is an appropriate mechanism, yes, it's an appropriate mechanism and it's an appropriate tool. It's one of many tools that you can use.
Okay, I will take that. Thank you. Are you aware of any changes to the Planning Act, we're talking about urban design only, between 2017 and today that would require an increase in the maximum building height over the 2017 proposal of 15 stories?
From a design perspective, yes. No.
Okay. And in the provincial policy statement, I don't think we need to go to it, you pointed to policy 1.1.3.4, and that policy hasn't changed since 2017, right?
I don't believe it has, no.
Do you want me to show you or?
No, that's okay. I'll take your word for it.
Are you aware of any changes to the growth plan between 2017 and today that, just remember urban design, that would require an increase in the maximum building height over 15 stories in this area?
Specific to urban design?
Yeah.
Directly connected and in isolation? No.
Well, that's what you've been offered as a witness, so that's all I can ask you. So,
okay.
And are you aware of any changes to the York Region official plan between 2017 and today that would require an increase in the maximum building height over 15 stories, again, from an urban design perspective?
No.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions, Mr. Chair.
Sorry, just wondering if if we can have some idea of what is to occur next. Is there going to be more cross of this witness, or are we moving on to another witness? Or?
Madam Chair, my expectation is that Mr. Streisfield will have cross-examination of this witness. I will then have some re-examination once he's completed. I don't know if Mr. Iskander is on the line, if he has any questions. And then once my re-examination is complete, we would then be calling the city's final witness, which is Dana Anderson.
Final witness this week, you mean?
Final witness as part of the city's case in chief.
Okay. 45 minutes for.
Mr. Chair, sorry. Before we break, I do not intend to be here for the afternoon because I don't have more questions today. I would like to leave my document books, which is my witness statements and my client's proposed modifications, and when appropriate, I can enter them into evidence, but I don't necessarily need to be in the room. Is that okay? Sorry?
You want them marked now?
No, I don't think we need to. I just want to be able to leave them here. I think we've done that with other people's statements. Thank you.